I thought I had seen it all as special rapporteur, and even the days before I was special rapporteur,
Hmm.
with the assaults that occurred in 2008-09, in 2014, and in particular with the Great March of Return in 2018. Um, and now we're seeing, and in 2014, we were horrified when the Palestinian death toll reached 2,200. Here we are now with a death toll that's over 5 times that amount in a much shorter period of time, with some European countries, and particularly the United States, while always urging caution or respect for international law, essentially allowing this assault to go on with very
Hmm.
few quarters given by the Israeli army regarding the immense death toll among Palestinian civilians. Um, I thought that the kinds of bombing and shelling that we would have seen that would have devastated a poor but relatively modern city in the third decade of the 21st century would be unthinkable. It would be unimaginable. This is something I would have thought that we can now safely confine to the history books of this kind of intense death toll. Here's my hope. I worked as a special rapporteur in international law, international
Hmm.
humanitarian law, international human rights law. Uh, it's my wish that finally that there will be this very wide gap between international law and international resolve will finally begin to come together, and we will see real justice through the International Court of Justice in The Hague and the International Criminal Court in The Hague with respect to these questions regarding Palestine. When it comes to the International Criminal Court, there has been an open file on the situation of Palestine since January 2015, almost 9 years ago. Uh, in 2021, the ICC prosecutor said that she was now conducting a formal investigation of of the situation in Israel and Palestine. Here we are, more than
Hmm.
2.5 years later. This conflict inevitably has caught the attention of the new chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, who was at the Rafah gates and in Cairo almost 2 weeks ago, stating that he was putting more urgency and more resources into the investigations and allegations of war crimes, both against Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups, as well as Israel with regards to this. Now, I have to tell you, as an international lawyer, I don't think that international law will liberate or free Palestine in the end. It's not going to be international courts that will wind up doing this. But what it will do, because the even more important court is the court of public opinion. And if the International Court of Justice says, when it addresses the advisory opinion questions that have been put before it by the General Assembly this past year, and it's going to be having hearings in February 2024. When it finally issues its decision, ideally later in 2024, it's going to be addressing the question: um, Is the occupation of Palestine now illegal under international law? And if it is, what are the legal consequences for Israel, for the United Nations, and for the international community? That would be a big step forward, I think, in helping to educate public opinion with respect
Hmm.
to the subjugation of the Palestinians under this occupation. And if the ICC prosecutor moves ahead and devotes more resources with respect to his investigation into the allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity, and maybe even the question of genocide uh, uh,
Hmm.
on his desk, the sooner the better. Then individual arrest warrants can be issued for those who are alleged to have committed these war crimes among the Palestinian armed groups and among the senior Israeli political, military, and leaders, and those who administer the settlements. Nothing would help us more with respect to refining and deepening public opinion on this issue, I think, than successful outcomes of these actions currently before these two courts in the Netherlands. Yes, look, I'm not the first. I was very much a laggard with respect to my report in April or March of 2022, which said that in the occupied Palestinian territory, Israel has been practicing apartheid, and apartheid is a crime against humanity under the 1998 Rome Statute, which created the International Criminal Court. Um, and but I'm far from the only person to say that. The Reverend Desmond Tutu said, uh, and who else has as much lived experience as he has with respect to apartheid, said that there are many practices in Israel that reminded him of the practices of apartheid in his native South Africa. The former Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, said in 2021 that the practices of Israel and its treatment of Palestinians arguably resembles apartheid. The former Attorney General of Israel in the 1990s, Michael Ben-Yair, said in 2022, with great regret, that he saw that his country was now engaged in the practice of apartheid against the Palestinians. I can go on and cite other both prominent international figures as well as Israeli personalities, former diplomats, former politicians who have said this is apartheid. 5 years ago, virtually nobody said that, aside from Palestinians, and it was generally meant as a political slogan. But with the deep and rich legal analysis done by organizations like Human Rights Watch, like Amnesty International, like Bet Salem, like El Haq, and I'd like to add maybe myself in my report, this is now a documented analysis that's rich in facts and rich in law. It anchors itself on the 1973 Apartheid Convention, or the Convention Against Apartheid, and the definition you find in the 1998 Rome Statute with respect to this. So while there are, as we talked about before, there are some who say, apartheid, if you say apartheid with respect to Israel, you must be an anti-Semite. Or those who say, apartheid, well, you're just not being very serious when it comes to Israel. I think I'd be happy to defend the high stack of these reports that have come to the same conclusion as I have, and found that apartheid winds up existing. And this will be an issue in front of the hearings that are going to occur in 3 months' time in The Hague, in front of the International Court of Justice. It's being asked to determine whether a combination of Israel's annexation of occupied territory, which is fundamentally illegal in international law, whether Israel's denial of self-determination for the Palestinian people, again, a violation of international law, and whether Israel's practice of entrenched discrimination amounting to apartheid, all of them together would lead to the conclusion that Israel's occupation has now become illegal. And among the many other countries who intervened on Palestine's behalf in submitting written statements to the International Court of Justice, there were two documents in particular, written statements coming from South Africa and written statements coming from Namibia, both of which wound up analyzing and concluding that Israel has practiced apartheid in South Africa. The moral voice of those two countries, Namibia and South Africa, has a great deal of respect in the international community. And for them to make this analysis, I think, is going to make it easier for the arguments to be heard and maybe the judges to be persuaded that apartheid is part of the Israeli system of permanent control.